Yeah, sure.
Right?
I'll
You
take
know,
that. But I'll also take the crap that I was getting today when people were saying, yeah, look, Clyde, the Pierre Poilievre has been doing podcasts. And I just said, you're welcome.
Yeah,
I have never. I'm
actually,
not trying to be rude again, but I have never heard of those podcasters before in my life.
No, but
I
can I talk about the podcast a bit?
Like
Because
lovely people. I'm not trying to be
yeah, so there's a few things about the podcast. This, first of all, is massive for Pierre Poilievre and his team. He did the right thing with the podcast, and the reason is that, and I'll share a story just from today. I spoke to a electrician today, and I said, "Oh, there's an election coming up. Are you planning on voting?" And he said, "I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to vote, but I'm for sure not going to vote for Pierre Poilievre." And I said, "Oh, why wouldn't you vote for him?" He said, "He's Donald Trump, and I don't want to vote for Donald Trump." And I said, "Oh, really? Why would you think that?" And he said, and what's interesting is, like, I think his that Apple video, and then most of what he sees on the news where they paint and they see Pierre Poilievre attacking the CBC or attacking, he's always on offense, but we never see Pierre Poilievre like his authentic self. And so he's always on attack. And so, for example, this person, they just know him as Trump. And that's what I'm afraid millions of Canadians are thinking the exact same thing. So how do you break that down? It's by actually showcasing a real person, a person, talk about, and the only way to do that. So, and one of the other things that was really interesting is he could have gone on my podcast or your podcast, or he could have gone to any person that is more, conservative voter or conservative side and done a podcast with them. But that wouldn't be a very good strategy. And the reason is that he needs to tap into the people that have never voted before, like I talked about before, and the people that are like, I don't know who I'm going to pick. And those are the people that he needs to talk to. And the only way to do that is to get someone that's maybe not, maybe left or maybe center, like they haven't, or, they're undecided themselves. So like, a little bit different. And they did a fantastic job at doing that. The last podcast with, what's his name?
Nobody does.
Spencer?
Sorry.
No, he did an exceptional job.
Good job.
Oh, it was really good, but like a relative unknown, and that's good too. That's good because
he's not unknown. He's got 300, and he's the.
That's a good point. So I guess
knowledge project. So
in political circles, he's not as well known, and this is a good point. He needs to branch out of just being in the political circles. Like I've said it before, like don't come on my podcast, go on some Dude Bros podcast, go on go on some podcast that has like young people watching it.
Maybe if you went on the Diagolon podcast.
Oh, well, not on that.
No,
but I am suggesting that he goes on podcasts that, demographics that are not paying attention to politics might tune into. And I think that this is what he just did. And I think that's great.
Yeah. So this guy's name is Shane Parrish. His podcast is the Knowledge Project podcast on YouTube. If you haven't watched the podcast, I would definitely recommend watching it. It was honestly, we got to see the true authentic. He talked about his children, with his daughter being special needs, and and how he could relate to that in based on his own. And why do you think they attack him saying, why don't you let CBC or whoever on your campaign trail? It's like, do they not know that he might need to have special like alone time with his daughter, special needs? Like they don't think about that, and they don't present it like that either. Nobody thinks about that. But now we know that about him. So we could, as people in Canada, we could critically think, oh, CBC's attacking Pierre for not allowing but now we know potentially why, right? I mean, he needs to have his family, private. private family with his situation, right?
And kudos to him for not using it as a crutch, right? Like
Nope.
a lot of people on the left, you know, you would see do, like they've got a kid with special needs, and then they would use that as like a virtue signal. And Pierre's never done that. And then to find out later that's the actual scenario that he has in his home, it's commendable. It's commendable.
If I could just return back to the point that Mark made about the electrician saying that he's like Trump, because I think that's a really important one. And I think that this is also a place where the independent media could make a big difference in this election, because the left-wing media certainly isn't looking to develop any space between that perception and what is reality. But there is absolutely no connection between Poilievre and Trump. And there's a really great article. It was written by a guy named Anthony Koch. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It was an op-ed. I think it was for it was for the National Post, where he says MAGA is not a conservative movement. And it absolutely isn't. The views of MAGA politics right now are completely diametrically opposed to what Poilievre is doing. Tariffs, for instance, are more regulation, more taxes. Poilievre has been remarkably consistent all the way going back to high school, that he's a low regulation, low tax person. Trump is really engaging, and whether you agree with it or not is really neither here nor there. It means nothing to me. But he's engaging in grievance politics, and he's engaging in politics that desires to increase government taxes and increase government regulations. That's what tariffs are. So Poilievre's positions and Trump's positions could not be more diametrically opposed. And so this idea that Poilievre is like Trump is really absurd on its face. And I think that whether you support Trump or not, again, you kind of have an obligation to explain that to your viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
One thing I want to add is, you know, this whole thing is a liberal spin. Let's be real, because if that's the only thing they have, without the Trump anything, they have to run on their 10-year track record. How's that going to? They were at the lowest poll ever for the Liberal Party, 16%. They were so low, they would literally, it was annihilation. Like it was unreal. 250 seats for the Conservatives. The only thing that brought them back to life is Donald Trump. And why do you think we still have the tariffs? Because it benefits the Liberals. They're actively sabotaging our economy in order to get reelected. And they're going to actively continue to sabotage our country in the name of climate change. We know this. This is why it's such an important election. It's unreal. One thing that I saw on this podcast yesterday, if we could go back to that, is Pierre Poilievre was asked straight up about the WEF and the elites and Mark Carney. He said, you have a stance on that. Like, explain it. And he said, which was absolutely amazing, is he said, you know what? This is the difference between Mark Carney and I. And Pierre said, I believe in you, the people of Canada. Okay. I don't want the government to be in your life. I don't want to impose and tell you what kind of car you're going to drive in 10 years, which is only electric with the Liberals. They already put 2035. Every single Canadian will only buy an electric vehicle. The thing is, the difference between the two candidates is crystal clear. Pierre Poilievre has straight up said, I want to get government out of your life. I want to bring freedom to this country, and I want you to decide what you want. If you want an electric car, go buy an electric car. If you want to run 3 businesses, I'm not going to impede your businesses. Right now, we have so much government inside our life that it's like, I don't want to work overtime because you're going to take over 50 whatever percent. Plus, when I spend the money, it's like 70% of the money I make in overtime is going to taxes. There's no incentive to work hard in this country. None. Like it's so what he said, it was so smart. Another thing he said is what is unbelievable is he said, you know what? The workers in this country are smarter than the WEF, the elites, the
I like
people
that.
with PhDs. Why? Because, for example, Mark Carney said he was advising our government for 5 years. And he said, yeah, print the money and help the economy. And then the electrician and the plumber, like, Pierre, this is going to cause inflation. These are just normal people. They're saying it. But yet the best of the best, the world elites, the people with the PhD and whatever, they're the ones that are like, yeah, we should do this. This is great. And look what happened. We had the worst inflation in 40 years. It's unreal. And so the people, he's like, the people are smarter. Let's give the power back to the people. He's like, I'm here for that. And the other side is they think they know best.